Welcome everyone to the May 2021 Metro Washington Old Time Radio Club meeting. We have a lot of interesting things happening at tonight's meeting. But as always, we like to start off with the first 15 minutes of Old Time Radio. And this time around, we're going to start. We're going to have Martin Grams do the first 15. Martin.
All right. I'm going to switch over to turn the volume up. I'm going to switch over to a slideshow presentation. And I just realized I did not have my slideshow up. There we go. And I'm going to try to share screen. So hopefully everybody will be able to see it. And a small reminder, once they do see it and everything's all good, mute yourself, because if we have 2 or 3 people making sounds, it'll drown out some of the recording they're about to hear.
My bad. Martin, would you like me to mute everybody and then you can unmute yourself?
Yeah, that'll work.
That'll be more efficient, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go. All set. Let me see if I can share screen. Bingo. PowerPoint. Because you do not need to see commercial realty information up there. There we go. Okay, and see if I can get this fill screen. This should fill everybody's screen. The presentation we are about to, I'm going to use Wendy's hand signatures if there's a problem, because obviously I can't hear anybody. Clapping means good. The recording we're going to hear tonight is of Dick Tracy. It's a personal favorite of mine. I bought all the IDW reprints, and you'll see them in a second. The recording we're going to play is, yes, a radio recording, and no, it is not a radio recording, which makes it a little bit unique. And to understand it, we're going to go through a quick 5-minute history of what this recording is and the history of Dick Tracy. The radio history, the newspaper strip started in 1931. The radio program premiered 3 years later. No surprise. Remember, Popeye and Little Orphan Annie was already done on radio. It ran as a 15-minute program 5 days a week, and it was in serial format. The villains would usually last about 3 weeks, which for Chester Gould and his newspaper strips was about 3 months, because he'd always kill off the villains and then they'd start a new one. So on radio, it was kind of abridged. He had most of the same characters that were in the newspaper strip, but keep in mind, newspaper strip at the time. So Junior was a regular on the program, usually coming in to rescue Dick Tracy while he's tied up in the basement about to drown from some leaky water pipes or something. They did not have some of the characters like Vitamin Flintheart originally, because he did not come in until years later. The 15-minute show went off the air in 1937. Hyman Brown takes credit for having brought it to newspapers, but he was in college at that time. So we kind of somewhat wonder if he really was still doing radio, or he was just breaking ground and found his new calling. It's still been worked on, and we're still digging. We did find the first year's worth of radio scripts, and we have them scanned in PDF. So they make fascinating reading for people like me. And then the program came back as a half-hour show in 1939, ran 2 years till 41. Depending on what website you read, the majority of people keep saying, and I think they're all reprinting from each other, that it is the World War II that caused the program to go off the air. But it did come back 2 years later in 43, so I kind of question that. And so that's the history of it. To give a difference between the 2 series, and this is what's important for the recording you're going to hear, the 15-minute show, 5 days a week, was nothing but long ongoing stories in 3-week increments with different villains. For the 1939 and on, the show was weekly as a half-hour program, and very quickly ended up having some of the characters that were the villains that were in the newspaper strip. See if I can get it. There we go. In the early ones, we found it was amusing that in the radio scripts, say 1934, the villains were not gangsters like it was in the newspaper strip. On radio, it was Billy the Kid, the Invisible Man. And yes, we can sit back and say that's not original, but you have to keep in mind an interesting aspect. and I'll show it in a second. One of the radio serials, the 3-week serial about the Phantom Ship, was adapted into a Big Little book, which is interesting. Since the recordings do not exist, we have a radio adventure adapted into a novel. Junior, back then in the 30s, was played by a number of people, one of them being Jackie Kelk of Henry Aldrich fame. And then in 1941, Chester Gould in the newspaper strip started coming up with what he called the colorful villains. Before then, the majority of them were villains like gangsters. So in 41, he created a character called the Mole, who basically lived underground and he strangled people with his strong hands. It was in part, people still credit to this day of being the cliffhanger serials that Republic Pictures made, where they would have the spider and the ghost and all those super villains in the filmed versions, because up until then, Gould never had those type of characters. But I truly suspect it is because the radio show was popular enough that Gould decided I should be bringing in more colorful villains. So in my theory, characters like Pruneface, Laffy, Itchy, Influence, Flat Top, and the Brow, all of those type characters were inspired by Gould having listened to the radio show and saying, I need to have some colorful villains, not just gangsters. These, by the way, are the covers of the IDW reprints. They started from 31 and they just finished the last of Chester Gould's run around like 77, 78, give or take, somewhere around there. The last volume just came out a month or so ago. So it took them almost 10 years to reprint all of the newspaper strips that Chester Gould did. Flat Top, of course, is the villain you are going to hear in the recording. He was so popular, he had a Flat Top Jr., then there was his daughter Angel Top, his brother Blow Top, and they kept coming back with all different renditions. The recording you're going to hear is called The Case of the Midnight Marauder, and this is the LP record. It was 278 records. They're about 3 minutes aside, so the total is 12 minutes. We're not going to hear a 15-minute recording, just 12. It'll also feature Vitamin Flintheart. Now, to give an interesting tidbit about Flat Top, he came into the radio program, in the newspaper strip around 1945. He was hired by black marketers to eliminate Dick Tracy, and the fee was about $5,000. But after he kidnapped the detective, Flat Top decided to go back to his employers and say, you're going to give me $50,000 or I'm going to let Tracy go and give him all the evidence against you, which of course came back to bite him. And Flat Top became, as much as it's not a colorful story arc, it's still one of the more popular villains in the newspaper strips. Of course, he appears in the radio program in the half-hour show every few weeks. They kept bringing him back because he was a popular. So even though Chester Gould kills off all his villains in the newspaper strip, on radio, he kept coming back again and again and again. The recording you're going to hear is one of those 30-minute radio broadcasts, but what they did is the cast went into a studio and recorded a 12-minute shorter rendition abridged from the radio script. So it's basically like a lost radio show, except you're not listening to the whole half hour of it. And here I'm going to play the recording. Where is... there we go.
This is Dick Tracy speaking. I had all the evidence the FBI would ever need on Croker King and this gang, and I was ready to leave Miami, hot-footed back to Washington, and turn it over to the feds, when Pat Patton got a brainstorm.
Look, Tracy, here we are in one of the pleasure spots of the world, and we ain't had a lick of fun. We're ahead of schedule, so let's take ourselves a holiday.
48 hours of sunlight and sand listened good to me. So instead of checking out, I told the hotel manager we'd be staying over, which was all right with him, except...
I'm afraid I'll have to ask you and Mr. Patton to change your room, Mr. Tracy.
Oh?
We've already reserved 917 for another patron, a rather eccentric gentleman, to say the least. Would you mind moving into 919?
Not at all.
Front, boy.
So that afternoon, Pat and I shifted our bags into the adjoining suite and went out to celebrate. It must have been about 11:30 when we got back to the hotel. We hadn't been in our room 5 minutes when things began to happen in 917.
Lifeguard! How dare you disturb the slumbers of the great fisherman of the town?
Pat, did you hear that?
Yeah, it's in the next room, Tracy. Murdered! Help! Police!
Come Come on, Pat, quick.
I'm right with you, Tracy.
Not that way. There's a door between the two streets.
Yeah, but it's locked from the other side.
Give me a hand.
Right.
We'll break it in.
I've done for murder, most foul and unnatural.
Switch on the lights, Pat.
Right.
I'm grateful to you, my friends, but you are too late. Vitamin Flintheart is dying.
No, you'll pull through, mister. It's only a scratch. Now tell us what happened. Where's the man who attacked you?
First, that bottle of pills on the dressing table. Give it to me.
Here, mister.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
What are those things anyhow? What are you eating?
Vitamins, of course. Complex compound vitamins. Vitamin A, A1, B, B1.
Be still a minute, will you, and tell us why you were slugged? Was the man a thief? Did he take anything valuable?
Only my makeup kit.
Your makeup kit. Oh, you're an actor, huh?
An actor? Sir, in the annals of the theater, what name shines more brightly than that of Vitamin Flintheart? My scrapbook will show it.
Yes. How about your midnight visitor? You couldn't see him in the dark, I suppose.
I did not see him, it is true, and yet I could describe him.
What do you mean?
As the scoundrel approached my bed, I put up my hand to ward off his blows. By chance, I touched the top of his head. Oh, gentlemen, it was horrible, most horrible.
What was? What are you talking about?
Gentlemen, this villain's head was not round like yours nor mine. It was, I swear it, my friends, perfectly level.
Holy Christopher Tracy, did you hear?
I heard it all right, Pat.
There's only one guy in the world with a head like that.
Yes, just one. The toughest killer we ever had to deal with. Flat Top. It wouldn't have taken a quiz kid to know Flat Top had mussed up the actor by mistake. He'd broken into 917 to get me. 5 minutes later, Pat was on his way to headquarters to see what they had on Flat Top, and I was just stepping out of the hotel. Outside, an old white-haired man was sitting in a cab beside the canopy. And before I could say a word, Vitamin Flintheart, who had stuck to me like a porous plaster, was third-degreeing him.
Good sir, did you happen to observe a monster in human form leaving the hotel? A repulsive-looking creature with a flat head.
Now that you mention it, sir, I think maybe I did. He came out a few minutes ago and hopped the cab. He went that way.
Aha, Tracy, the trail grows warm. May we commandeer your cab?
Certainly. Climb in.
Vitamin climbed in first. But as I stepped on the running board, I heard the old man tell the driver,
These gentlemen are going over to the west side.
"You said the other cab headed east. You're making a mistake, aren't you, sir?"
No, I'm not.
What?
You're the one who made the mistake.
Flat Top.
Don't reach for that rod, copper. This ain't a fountain pen I'm poking in your back. Crawl in.
Great heavens, Tracy. We've been deceived. He's not an old man. That's a wig he's wearing.
You ought to know, pal, it's your wig. Right out of your makeup box.
Mine? Why, you insolent bounder. That is the wig I wore when I played King Lear.
Shut up. All right, Sparrow, get rolling.
Okay, Flat Top.
Nice seeing you again, Tracy. You crossed me up when you changed rooms on me in the hotel. But everything's okay now. In fact, everything's about perfect for Flat Top.
I knew I was in a rough spot, but I didn't know what was behind it all till we reached Flat Top's apartment over on the west side. His steward Sparrow shoved us into a fancy library with oriental rugs, antique furniture, bookcases up to the ceiling, and locked the door. We were 6 stories high. There were no rain spouts, no fire escapes, and we could hear Sparrow pacing up and down just outside. And then, pressing our ears against the door, we could hear Flat Top's voice.
Hello.
He was talking on the phone.
This is Flat Top. Let me talk to Croker King.
Great Scott, I should have known it. He's tied in with Croker King.
Croker, this is Flat Top. I got an old chum of yours locked up in my library here. Yeah, that's right. Dick Tracy. Yeah. What's it worth to you if I rub him out?
Great heaven, quiet, Vitamin. I want to know what I'm worth.
Make it 50 grand, Croker, and it's a deal. Okay. Soon as I polish him off, I'll be around to collect. Oh, there's an old ham along with him.
Ham?
I'll take care of him, too. No extra charge.
Ham?
He's seeing you, Croker.
A ham? Tracy, did he have the effrontery to call me Vitamin Flintheart a ham?
Relax, Vitamin. I know it hurts, but the slugs in this automatic are gonna hurt worse.
Well, yeah, Flat Top.
Listen, he's right outside the door talking to his steward.
Bring those two up to the soundproof room. And don't plug them unless you have to. I'll handle that job myself.
Gotcha, Chief. Tracy, we're doomed. If only he hadn't frisked us. I had a gun. A gun? Wait a minute. Maybe I can still get a gun. At least it's worth trying.
Tracy, why are you climbing up there? Have you lost your mind?
Don't look up here on the bookcase, Vitamin. He'll be coming in a second. He approaches now, Tracy. Whatever you do, don't look up. Don't give me away.
Okay, chums, this is it. We got a nice little surprise. Hey, where's Tracy?
Tracy? You mean Dick Tracy, the famous detective?
Come on, where is he?
Here I am, Sparrow, right here. Hey! Magnificent Dick Tracy. Oh, what a blow. Listen.
Pick up his gun, Vitamin.
Certainly.
It dropped right at your feet.
Oh, here you are, old chap.
Sparrow will be out for a few minutes at least. Now, let's get moving. If we can only...
Sparrow!
So, quiet man.
Sparrow, where are you?
Oh, Flat Top's coming back. Well, I'm ready for him.
Hey, Sparrow, what was all the rush?
Okay, Flat Top, reach.
Tracy.
Reach, I said.
Get your hands up there and keep him up.
Keep him covered, Tracy. I shall remove his weapon.
Stay away from him, Vitamin. Don't go near him.
Come, Flat Top. Yield me your gun or I'll...
You'll what?
Ouch! Unhand me, villain.
Let go of him, Flat Top.
Sorry, pal. As long as he's in front of me, you can't plug me without plugging him.
Egad, Tracy, he's right. For the love of heaven, hold your fire.
Come on, Hamlet. He ain't gonna shoot.
Save me, Tracy. He's taking me away.
Better luck next time, Tracy. Only there ain't gonna be no next time. For you.
I felt the hot lead searing through my shoulder. And then I must have blacked out. When I came to, the room was empty. Then I remembered what Flat Top told Croker King on the phone.
As soon as I polish him off, I'll be around.
That gave me the idea. I tied up my shoulder with a makeshift bandage and put through a call to headquarters. Pat Patton was still there.
Hello, Tracy.
Pat, listen. I want a newspaper extra on the streets inside a half hour.
A what?
Don't ask questions. Just listen. The headlines must read, Dick Tracy found dead. And Pat did just that. A half hour later, the newsboys were screaming,
Extra! Read all about it. Dick Tracy found dead.
headlines 2 inches high. My picture splattered all over the front page. The plan was bound to work. When Flat Top heard of my death, he'd go to Croker King to collect his reward. And that was where Pat Patton and I would spring our trap. 15 minutes went by, a half hour. I was beginning to wonder if I'd slipped up somewhere, when all of a sudden...
Listen, there's somebody coming down the alley, Tracy. If it's Flat Top or...
Hold your fire, Pat. It's a patrolman.
Hey, Mr. Tracy. Mr. Tracy.
Yeah, patrolman.
Mr. Tracy, the chief sent me over to give you this.
Why, it's a bottle. The one Flintheart carries his vitamins in.
Where did this come from, patrolman?
It was picked up on the beach at the south end of the bay, sir. There's a note in it.
Yes, I see. With a rubber band around it. Hold your flashlight closer, Pat.
Okay, Tracy. What does it say?
Oh, I have suffered.
What?
A brave vessel who had no doubt some noble creature in her dashed all to pieces. Shakespeare.
What?
Flintheart must have written it, Pat.
But it don't make no sense.
Might make a lot of sense. Patrolman.
Yes, sir.
Are there any wrecked ships drawn up in the bay?
No, but there's an abandoned hulk a ways offshore.
An abandoned hulk, huh?
What do you think of Tracy?
Maybe Vitamin Flintheart isn't as crazy as he seems. Come on, Pat. We're going to take a pleasure cruise around the bay. Dawn hadn't broken yet, and we were almost on top of the hulk before we saw her. Moving as silently as we could, we pulled alongside, and grabbing a rope ladder, climbed up on deck. Pat covered the top side, and gun in hand, I went below. The captain's cabin was one flight down, and I slipped into it. It was black as pitch in there. I was just reaching for my flashlight when I heard...
I told you to stay in your own cabin, Flintheart.
Maybe he is in his own cabin, Flat Top.
Trace, don't move or I'll plug you. Too bad I didn't fall for your newspaper guy.
Never mind that, Flat Top. I've got you now.
Yeah, and I've got you, copper. You can't see me no better than I can see you. If you're gonna shoot, you better make the first one count.
I knew what he meant. If I fired and missed him, the flash of my gun would tell him where I was. But the same thing went for him. We circled around in the darkness, each trying to catch a glimpse of the other, each afraid to reveal his position, neither one daring to pull the trigger. And then I remembered an old trick. I took the rubber band that Flintheart had wrapped around his note. Then I took a plain kitchen match, the kind I light my pipe with, fitted it into the rubber band, stretched it back, aimed at the wall, and let go. 6 feet away, it struck and flared. And then it was Flat Top's gun blocking in the darkness, aiming where he thought I was. I whirled and pulled the trigger. And that was curtains for Flat Top. As for Croker King and his gang, ask the FBI what happened to them. And Fireman Flintheart? Well, his only comment was,
Serves the blackguard right. It brings to my mind the classic line which I spoke in The Return of Sherlock Holmes. Watson, I said, it only goes to show that crime does not pay.
This is Dick Tracy speaking.
And back to here. There we go. One small trivia about that recording, besides the fact that you can pay anywhere between $10 to $25 on eBay and get it. Some people are asking for 50, but it never goes more than 25 if you want to buy the LP records. It comes with some newspaper strips that match up with that recording. But I did not know this until the other week. The Smithsonian has a National Museum of American History that preserves sound recordings, and that recording is among their recordings that's been preserved officially. Every year they add a few recordings, and apparently that recording is now preserved there at the Smithsonian.
Very good. Thank you very much, Martin.
Martin, I have a question. I couldn't place the brand of the radio you were showing. You know which one it was?
Yes.
That distinctive crest and the V.
Oh, no, I just grabbed it off Google.
Oh, sorry.
Let me take a quick peek.
Was it a Z? No.
Martin Walden. By the way, I had Chuck DeGaulle grandson on the show a few years ago, and his name is Tracy.
Ah.
Yeah, it's fun. They just gave him the name Tracy.
Looking at that radio, that it was a multi-shortwave, I was wondering if it might have been Grundig.
I see a symbol on there. I can't see. It doesn't have like a name on it, but it's got like a number, and I have no idea if that's a model number right underneath it.
Yeah.
Martin, do we know who played the part of Dick Tracy?
That was Jim Amici.
Oh,
I knew the voice was so familiar, and I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think with most of it shows it Ned Weaver, the Dick Tracy, that most of the radio episodes from.
Yeah, he was one of them. I think there was 3 that played the role of Dick Tracy over the years because they had different renditions, different directors, and of course contracts. Came out of New York, so a lot of those actors, it all varied. Jim Amici, I think, came out of Chicago, though.
Right.
So the recording might have been recorded in Chicago, but the radio shows came out of New York.
Yes, I know.
Martin, slightly different, slightly off the subject, definitely off the subject. How's the coffee house coming?
Lease negotiations right now. The sad part is if you keep following up, they think you're impatient and you lose negotiable clout. So you got to keep sitting and waiting for them to get back to you, and you play the game, and then you got to prove to them that you did get a better offer elsewhere. So then they have to talk the price down, and it's on. And sincerely, there is more real estate now than there is that was available about a year or so ago, because so many businesses closed up. But if you tell a realtor, commercial realtor, look, yeah, I'm not saying you're desperate for business, but I'm willing to give you some business. Oh no, they're busier now than they've ever been. So you know how the game works. You kind of have to just sit back and wait. But we're getting close now. We're anticipating opening in October.
October.
Okay. Hey Marty, this is George Downs. How are you doing?
Hey George, haven't heard from you in a while.
Yeah, good to finally see you. Now that we're virtual, I get to join in with you occasionally.
Awesome.
On the Dick Tracy radio show, how many episodes exist?
I don't know the number off the top of my head. I know there's 6 or 7 more than what Jay Hickerson lists, because every year someone is able to find a recording Usually it's one of the 15-minute episodes from the early runs, not the half hours from the later runs. So they still keep turning up, like most radio shows, 1 or 2 every year from each show, and that's one of them.
At least stuff is showing up. What would you estimate it is in like a quantity of 50, 30, 100 more?
I have at least 70 some in my collection. So there's at least 70 some. There might be about 85 to 90 maybe.
That's awesome. How come, but the half-hour one didn't fare as well?
No, the half hour ran for quite a while, from 39 to 48. Just a half hour, a 15-minute one seemed to be easier to find, I guess. So
interesting.
Sometimes we always think the later recordings are going to surface later, and they never do.
Yes, I know.
Right. This is a little bit on it. Go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jeff Whipple had a question on chat, but I think that question's already been answered. He was asking who the announcer is, but of course the announcer was Dick Tracy himself. So Jeff, I believe your question has been answered. So anyway, you're about to say, George?
I was just going to ask one other question to Marty. I don't know if he knows the answer to it. It's a little bit indirect. It's not directly based on the radio show, but do you have any idea why so few of the Dick Tracy TV shows are available? Do they exist and locked up, or are they just missing?
We had Garen Roberts at our convention a few years ago. If people remember, he did a presentation on the history of Dick Tracy. Someone asked him that question, and that was done by a very low budget and very cheap production company. There was a fire, Garen verified, and it burned up most of the negatives, but apparently 16 millimeters are still floating about. So it's whatever they've been able to find over the years, but it may be possible more than half of them are gone just because they went up in smoke.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Unless there's any other questions, we can move on to the business portion of the meeting. We can start off with the treasurer's report. I don't think our treasurer, Joni, is with us tonight, but she emailed me the numbers, and not only is the treasurer's, but there's also the membership chairman report. We'll start off with the membership. We've actually have 2 new members sign up since our last meeting, which brings up our total number of members to 125. On the Treasury side, we had incoming revenue of $80.38 since last time, and expenses of $102.71 for a balance of $7,434.72. Now, this total does not include what is owed to John Reiser for radio recall expenses. John, I see you're online here. Are you there? No. I see he's on mute.
Muted.
Yeah. But also, I see no picture either, so I'm not sure if he's awake.
Did somebody call me?
Yes, I did. John,
Okay. I'm sorry. I had a little family emergency here, so I had to put you on mute. Okay, but I'm back.
Okay. Yes, I was just giving a treasurer's report, and I was giving the balance in our club treasury, but that doesn't account for money owed to you for radio recall activities.
Yeah, I admit I've been under a number of issues here. I have a wife who has Alzheimer's and a daughter who helps here, but she has been hospitalized, and I've just on and off for the last few months. So I've just been under a lot of pressure and just have ignored it. I'm not worried about the money, but I want to get I've got a spreadsheet all set up. I just haven't finished it up for you, but I hope to do it within the next month.
Okay, and you have Joni's contact information, correct?
Pardon?
You have Joni Farrell's contact information, like her email address?
Yes, she sure does. Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I'm in
Okay, yeah.
touch with Jody. Yes. Okay. By
Okay.
phone and by email and so on. Okay.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm gonna put myself on mute, but I'm going to be listening anyway. Okay.
Okay, very good. Okay, I guess that concludes the treasurers and membership chairman report. Next up would be the print librarians. Mark and Masha, anything to report?
Go ahead. We got back the book that we sent out to Ron Barnett. He had asked for the copy of Heavenly Days, the story of the radio show, and also Bill and Jim rather, and Mary and Jordan. But that's it. I don't think people think we died. I guess we haven't had a request save that one from Ron since Hoover was in office.
Okay. Yes. So. Yeah. I duly noted that the number of requests have been dropped off, especially since the pandemic, and well, as I said, since Hoover's been in office. So very good. I'll take that note since Hoover's been in office. Okay. Then I guess that brings us up to the audio library. Rebecca or Kathy?
Well, not much is going on since we're breaking up the audio library. I haven't put out a new list in a while. I'm hoping to the next couple months. It'll be a short one, but it's stuff that's been unearthed since I was moving all the stuff that people did take out of here. So do keep a watch out for it. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much. Jim, anything to report on the vice president's side?
Yes, next month, our own John Abbott is going to give us a program on Stan Freberg.
Oh, wonderful.
That's the news I have to report for you right now.
Tony, just keep that comment going until you've heard it.
Okay. Very good. I guess next we'll move on to old business. At the moment, I don't have any old business to report, which means we can move on to new business. New business, we have a couple items. First is been brought to my attention that one of our club members has a birthday coming up on Monday, which is Ellen Burney. And I've been informed that she'll be turning 81. So, you know, if anybody would like, you know, her address or such to send a card or such, then, you know, I guess is who should we contact? You know, I guess you could contact me. I'm not sure if anybody has my email address, or maybe Jack French or somebody else who's been in, you know, if you have other people's emails, then, but in any case, I'm sure we all wish her a very happy birthday, and you know. Okay, next up, it's also been kind of mentioned that Joe Webb is going to be doing a future presentation on suspense, and would like some questions concerning the radio show. Jack, you had sent me that information. Do you have a contact information for him? Oh, Jack, you're on mute.
Yeah, Joe is scheduled for what, July? Is that right, Tim?
Yep, he's scheduled for July. That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and Joe will give us a good presentation on the program, but he wanted to include in anything that other people wanted to know about the show. and they can contact me through, and I'll relay it to him, and he'll be sure to incorporate that into his presentation.
Okay. Oh, I write this down as club recorder. Okay. And does anybody have any new business they wanted to discuss before I move on to the next thing on the agenda? No? Very good.
I wanted to share something if I could. My name is Brian, and I'm a good friend of Martin Graham's, who had me join this club. And thanks to Zoom, I've been able to be here because I'm all the way up in New Jersey. But there's a book that came out recently. I'm not sure if people are aware of. There was a very short-lived radio series on CBS called Cabin B-13, which had the stories of John Dixon Carr as its main storylines. And I believe there's only 3 shows that exist of the series today, but CBS donated all of the scripts to the Library of Congress. And thanks to an article I actually found in the Washington Post, I found that there was a book that was printed called The Island of Coffins, which contains all 23 scripts of the series. They got from the Library of Congress, and they've been reprinted for the first time. And if people are interested in reading the missing stories that don't exist anymore, but you want to possibly see what the series actually contains, all of the scripts are in this book. And I've only been able to find it on Amazon. So that's how I got my copy. But I just wanted to share that with the group because I thought that may be of interest here.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any other new business from other people? No? Then let me bring up the final item on the club side. On Tuesday, the club officers and some other members had received an email from our club president, Michael Haig, because of a health issue with a family member and some other circumstances. Michael felt he had no choice but to resign from his position as club president effective immediately. So at present, we do not have a club president. So a couple of emails have been exchanged since then, but since the news came so recently, not much has been discussed on the next steps to take. Obviously, more discussion will be taking place on what to do, and not only with the vacant office, but also with the future of the club. So I just want to make everyone aware of that situation. And I'm not sure if anyone has any questions at this point, but as I said, further discussion will be taking place among the club officers. So, and it looks like Larry Maupin, our new radio recall editor, has just provided Joe Webb's email address on chat. If anyone wants to take a look there. So you can pass on your questions concerning the suspense presentation. And the address is Dr. Joe Webb, or Dr. Joe Webb, W-E-B-B, @yahoo.com. So, but good. And unless there's anything else concerning new business, we can then move on to the quiz. Which is was presented by our own Sally Stevens. Sally, are you ready to regale us with another fascinating quiz? I believe it was written this time by Frank.
Yes, we have our quiz this month by Frank Morgan. So this is very exciting. And Frank, thank you for sending the questions and the answers separately so I can still play. So it's very, I really appreciate that. So I have the answers over here, but I haven't looked at them. So I'm putting them down. I am also stalling because everyone knows that this is the time that you are supposed to get your pencil and paper, children. Please get prepared for the quiz. This is your time to get your notebooks out and close all of your notes away because we are going to take our quiz. Thank you, Wendy. I like how Wendy is prepared for the quiz. She's ready to go. I'm looking to see who else is ready for the quiz. Oh, yes, excellent. Linnell is ready. John is ready. I love to see it. Thank you. Bert is ready. I love to see all these students ready to go for the quiz. You can tell I work in an elementary school. Yes, yes. I think I've stalled long enough. Are we ready? We are ready. I will read each question 2 times.
Are you going to launch the poll?
Oh, yeah, I need to do that. It's Friday. It's been a long week. Is it summer yet? Is it summer yet? Is it? Oh, okay. Sorry. Is it summer yet? Not that I'm counting or anything, but if anybody's in Fairfax County, we've got 28 days. So that includes weekends. Not that I'm counting, though, or anything. Launching poll. Now, as I always say, you may answer in the poll. You may move faster than I move, but I will read every question 2 times. I will read every answer 2 times. Everyone has their pen and paper? Their pencils? We are ready to go. Number 1. Oh, I should first read because I love that Frank named our quiz. May quiz. What's in a name? Number 1. The Lone Ranger's nephew, Dan, rode a horse that was the son of Silver. What was the horse's name? A. Simon. B. Theodore. C. Alvin. D. Victor. I don't read ahead of time. It's so much more fun that way. Number 1. The Lone Ranger's nephew, Dan, rode a horse that was the son of Silver. What was the horse's name? A. Simon. B. Theodore. C. Alvin! D. Victor. Number 2. On our Miss Brooks, Connie's landlady, Mrs. Davis, had a cat. What was the cat's name? A. Artemis. B. Minerva. C. Pandora. D. Jupiter. On our Miss Brooks, Connie's landlady, Mrs. Davis, had a cat. What was the cat's name? A. Artemis. B. Minerva. C. Pandora. D. Jupiter. Number 3. In the Lucille Ball comedy, My Favorite Husband, her friend and neighbor, Mrs. Atterbury, was played by B. Benadryl? What was Mrs. Atterbury's given name? A. Marcia. B. Sally. C. Iris. D. Wendy. In the Lucille Ball comedy, My Favorite Husband, her friend and neighbor, Mrs. Atterbury, was played by B. Benadryl. What was Mrs. Atterbury's given name? A. Marcia. B. Sally. C. Iris. D. Wendy. Number 4. Mustang Mag was a friend to which of these Western heroes? A. The Lone Ranger. B. Hopalong Cassidy. C. Gene Autry. D. Roy Rogers. Mustang Mag was a friend to which of these Western heroes? A. The Lone Ranger. B. Hopalong Cassidy. C. Gene Autry. D. Roy Rogers. Number 5. On Big Town, this character sometimes provided underworld information to Steve Wilson, editor of the Illustrated Press. Who was it? A. Harry the Hack. B. Willie the Weep. C. Freddie the Fink. D. Larry the Loser. On Big Town, this character sometimes provided underworld information to Steve Wilson, editor of the Illustrated Press. Who was it? A. Harry the Hack. B. Willie the Weep. C. Freddie the Fink. D. Larry the Loser. Number 6. Which of the following characters was not played by Jack Webb? A. Johnny Madeira. B. Pete Kelly. C. Pat Novak. D. Richard Rogue. Which of the following characters was not played by Jack Webb? A. Johnny Madeira. B. Pete Kelly. C. Pat Novak. D. Richard Rogue. Number 7. John Dehner played Englishman J.B. Kendall in Frontier Gentlemen. What did the initials JB stand for? A. John Britton. B. James Barry. C. Jeremy Bryan. D. It was never revealed. John Dehner played Englishman J.B. Kendall in Frontier Gentlemen. What did the initials J.B. stand for? A. John Britton. B. James Barry. C. Jeremy Bryan. D. It was never revealed. Number 8. On the Green Hornet, Clicker Binney was a photographer for the Daily Sentinel. What was her given name? Marjorie, Linnell, Rebecca, Joni. On the Green Hornet, Clicker Binney was a photographer for the Daily Sentinel. What was her given name? A. Marjorie. B. Linnell. C. Rebecca. D. Joni. Number 9. On the life of Riley, his friend, neighbor, and fellow former New Yorker was Jim Gillis. What was Gillis's full name? A. James Monroe Gillis. B. James Brooklyn Gillis. C. James Buchanan Gillis. D. James Madison Gillis. On the life of Riley, his friend, neighbor, and fellow former New Yorker was Jim Gillis. What was Gillis's full name? A. James Monroe Gillis. B. James Brooklyn Gillis. C. James Buchanan Gillis. D. James Madison Gillis. Number 10. In February 1945, Hollywood's Greatest performed Dick Tracy in B flat. Bing Crosby was Dick. Dinah Shore was Tess. Frank Sinatra was Shaky. Jimmy Durante was the Mole. What was the name of the show on which it was performed? A. Stars Over Hollywood. B. The Big Show. C. Command Performance. D. Hollywood of America. In February 1945, Hollywood's Greatest performed Dick Tracy in B flat. Bing Crosby was Dick. Dinah Shore was Tess. Frank Sinatra was Shaky. Jimmy Durante was the Mole. What was the name of the show on which it was performed? A. Stars Over Hollywood. B. The Big Show. C. Command Performance. D. Hollywood of America. This concludes the quiz. I will leave the poll open. I'm just going to minimize it so you have time to still answer in that if you wish. And then following the presentation, we will find out the answers. Back to you in the studio.
I thank you from our remote connection, Ms. Sally Stevens. So, and speaking of the main presentation, that the conclusion of this first part of the quiz that brings us to that. And presenting tonight is a man who doesn't need an introduction, but I will introduce him anyway. So with no further ado, I pass it off to you, Mr. Jack French.
Thank you very much. The origin of this program tonight comes about 3 months ago when I got an invitation from the San Francisco Historical Association to deliver a Zoom lecture in late May on the subject of radio from San Francisco. And at the time, I probably know nothing more than one man's family, Jack Webb, and of course, Candy Matzik. So I've been researching this for about 3 months or so, and assisted very handily by a lovely lady from San Francisco, Judy Leff, who is the daughter of the guy who played Mallard on Candy Matzik. Now, I also obviously had to put some parameters. I can't go through every program in San Francisco, so we said, let's concentrate on 1940s. Now, there was plenty of radio talent in San Francisco before the 40s, including Carlton E. Morris, the Edwards family, including Sam Edwards, and Hal and Cornelia Burdick. But during the 40s, during World War II, they had a number of additions to the San Francisco scene who were extremely talented writers, performers, etc. And that includes Howard Duff and Jolly Bill and Jack Webb and Eloise Rowan, the best radio organist I know of, and also Henry Leff and his wife, Bobby Lyons, both of whom were radio performers. Now, I'm going to start off with a program that probably none of us have ever heard. There's only 2 copies in circulation, although the show was heard over 1,000 times. Started in 1928, Jolly Bill and Jane. It was a kids program. It was 15 minutes. Started in 1928, ran for the first 5 years under the sponsorship of Cream of Wheat. And basically, William Steinke, who was the originator of the program, would tell jokes and tell stories, and a young girl would accompany him. And that young girl changed over the years. The show was on and off the air, mostly on NBC, mostly at an ungodly early morning hour, like 6:30 or 7, and ran on and off for two decades. Steinke took his show to San Francisco at the tail end of World War II, and the program was pretty much the same, other than the fact that all the references were to California and more specifically the San Francisco area. So let's start off with the Jolly Bill and Jane.
Good afternoon, boys and girls. It's time for another frolic with Jolly Bill and Jane. Just where Jolly Bill and Jane will ride to on the magic cable car, no one ever knows. But you can rest assured they'll keep things a-humming for 15 minutes. Aha, hear that bell? It's the little magic cable car coming around the curve with Jolly Bill and Jane.
How do you do, my sweet little people? Here we are again.
Jolly Bill and Jane.
All aboard the magic cable car. Today we will go to
Uncle Bill, the birthday dance. It's covered with your favorite flowers.
My Jane, look. Just what I've been wishing for. What lovely flowers. I love the little birthday bench, don't you?
Oh, I love it.
Now let's see who's number one on the birthday bench today. Sue Brockaway. Always takes care of her little sister when they cross streets. Oh, that's mighty nice of you indeed. Keep it up. You're a real safety soldier. Bobby Pritchett has a birthday today. Karen Christensen, and so on. Jackie Sheehan, the baseball player. And Eloise, if you please. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear buddy. Happy birthday to you. Oh, that's
Jolly Bill safety soldiers on parade. Left, right, left. Company halt, 1, 2.
Now, there's actually two connections between this show and Candy Matson, of all things. The Eloise, if you please, is Eloise Rowan, who grew up in the Minnesota area. By age 20, she was playing the organ for silent films, went into radio, was a big star in both Minnesota and Illinois, and then moved herself to San Francisco in the 40s. And she was the organist on both Jolly Bill and Jane, as well as Candy Matson. There's a second connection. The little girl you heard as Jane was Patty Pritchard, who at the time of this broadcast was 20 years old. Patty was on the Candy Matson show in minor roles and ended up marrying the announcer, Dudley Manlove. Now, I mentioned Howard Duff coming to the San Francisco area. He and his leading lady, Monty Margetts, were with the Seattle Repertory Theater. And in the summer of 1937, they decided to come down to San Francisco. They're going to spend a summer there just seeing how much radio work they could pick up. They picked up so much radio work, they ceased their contract with Seattle Theater. And of course, both of them went on to great fame on the radio, both as detectives. Monty Margetts was the star of Meet Miss Sherlock. And of course, Howard was The Adventures of Sam Spade. Now, Jack Webb, despite we seeing him as a Marine officer on the screen all the time, was actually in the US Army. He enlisted to become a pilot, got washed out from pilot school, and then shortly after got discharged because he was in a humanitarian discharge, sole support of both his mother and his grandmother. So he had a little bit of trouble finding a job in Los Angeles, went to San Francisco, and of course was a great success there. And I'll play some of his shows there. There were a total probably about 8 different shows that he created, most of which he starred in. We'll give you samples of some of them. Let's start with The Little Man Inside, which Webb did with John Nesbitt. This was on NBC Blue coming out of San Francisco. And it was kind of a strange show. In other words, there were 2 voices for the same character. You could hear the character speaking to other people, and then you could hear the little man inside, which was the voice inside his head, played by Jack Webb.
The Little Man Inside. The Blue Network introduces The Little Man Inside. It's the story of that peculiar character within us that dictates our thoughts and runs our machinery, sometimes so differently from the way we want it run. Here's the story of everyday John Nelson and his thoughts. But there's nothing commonplace about his thoughts, and through the medium of this program, we bring you John Nelson, his down-to-earth adventures, and his out-of-this-world thoughts. Let's meet John Nelson.
Sure. I know it's hard for you dealers to get cigarettes.
And here's the little man inside.
I'll bet he's got a couple of cartons stuck back there somewhere. I should have tried a different approach. You gotta be cagey. Maybe if I bought a lot of witch hazel, he'd throw in a pack.
You see, we bring you the everyday life of one man, John Nelson, and the little man inside. As we join John Nelson, we find him hurrying to catch the morning bus with his wife's admonition ringing in his ears. Today's the day he gets a raise from his boss, or else. Both he and the little man inside are working overtime as they run the bus.
Run. That's all I do is run for buses, run for lunch, run for a train. Yeah, I'll make it this morning. Uh-oh, here's that stupid conductor.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
Watch him fumble the change they owe.
Here's a 50-cent piece. That's the best I can do for you today.
Look at him look at it. You'd think I offered him a 10.
Yeah, that's 43 cents I get back.
Now he'll muff it. I don't think he can count to 43. Some of the guys they got on this line.
No. 43 cents.
What'd I tell you?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I ought to get paid for doing your job.
Now you'll notice in that brief squib 2 references to World War II, the shortage of cigarettes, where you have to offer something to the pharmacist or he won't sell you the packs he's hiding. And secondly, that a bus only costs 7 cents. Program ran for less than a year. And by that time, Webb had created another program called 1 out of 7. And the introduction will explain it to you. But basically, what they were going to do was to take some sort of important headline from the week and then do this as a radio program. And the unique thing is that we get to hear Webb with different voices. There are only 2 people on the program. There was an announcer and there was Jack Webb. And Jack Webb did all the voices. And you get to hear his Southern accent in this one because they're going to take to task a staunch segregist senator, Senator Bilbo, who was fighting civil rights tooth and nail. And so Webb's going to take him on this radio show, while at the same time seeing they mean him no harm at all.
Ladies and gentlemen, the material and direct quotations included in the following program have been taken from authoritative files and from dispatches filed by the Associated Press and International News Service. We present these statements without editorial comment. We assume no responsibility for their content.
The American Broadcasting Company presents 1 out of 7. 24 hours make a day, 7 days make 1 week. And from these past 7 days, the editors here in our San Francisco newsroom have chosen the one story which they have judged most worthy of retelling. This is 1 out of 7.
Theodore Gilmore Bilbo is an honorable man. As a member of the United States Senate, he is looked upon as such by the eyes of the law. Perhaps he is looked upon as such by many or most of his constituents. Though his voice occasionally grate upon the nerve, and his views often confound the innocent, the fact remains, as a member of the Senate of the United States, Theodore Gilmore Bilbo is an honorable man. And we do not intend to prove otherwise. We merely wish to cite a few samples of his handiwork, and perhaps a supplementary side glance or two, just for the sake of contrast. Adjust your dials most carefully, citizens. Herewith presenting Senator Theodore Bilbo, picture number 1. Scene, the chamber of the Mississippi State Legislature. Time, March 23rd, 1944. The speaker. The chair recognizes our distinguished guest, the Honorable Theodore Bilbo, United States Senator from the state of Mississippi. Now, at this moment, I cannot urge you too strongly to continue the valiant fight to uphold our racial integrity. We must renew our faith and allegiance to the color line. For your information, I have found that certain Negro organizations are determined to secure passage of anti-poll tax measures. It's their first way towards the fulfillment of a dastardly equality program, which Negro leaders have launched throughout the South and throughout the nation. That equality they must not and will not attain.
Powerful show. There are about 7 copies that have survived from that series, and all of them are a cry for racial justice and civil rights in America. The next couple we're going to talk about are Hal and Cornelia Burdick. He was born in my state of Wisconsin, but ended up graduating from the University of Washington with Cordelia. He met his wife at drama club. They relocated to San Francisco in the 30s. And he was both a writer and an actor, and she was acted in a number of radio programs that he wrote. One of the best ones was probably Dr. Kate, a soap opera in which his wife starred. It was sponsored by Sperry Flour. Another program that was very popular in San Francisco and on the network was Are These Our Children, which ran from 46 to 48 on ABC. And it was based on a film about juvenile delinquency. The announcer was John Galbraith. And the most popular quiz program in San Francisco has got to be Professor Puzzlewit, which NBC broadcast worldwide. The announcer was Larry Keating, and it was on the air for about 8 years, sponsored by Gallencamp shoes. Now, briefly back to Jack Webb. He had a very interesting show, which only reached the audition stage, and we're sorry for it, although I think it was converted into Pat Novak, and maybe you'll know after you hear the audition. But here's the audition of Fisherman's Wharf, and just play the introduction and show you how good you can combine music and voice and sound effects.
When you hear the roar of the presses, when you hear the boys,
Oops, I jumped ahead to the Burdicks. Hal Burdick wrote a program called Night Editor, in which he was the star, he was the writer, he was the director. And of course, if you've got a show that you're that much in charge, you just use your own real name on the show, which he did. So the Night Editor was Hal Burdick. 15-minute show, ran for several years, then made into a television show of all things, 15 minutes long. It was on the DuPont network. And basically all Hal did was tell us a story for this 15 minutes and never did really any work as an editor.
What you hear the sound of the newsroom. It's time for Night Editor featuring Hal Burdick. Now another of Hal Burdick's stories. Across the busy newsroom, that little office in the corner, well, Hal's talking to Bob.
Bobby, how'd you like an assignment to take you out of town? That eager glow you see in my fan doesn't mean no, boss. I saw an item in the proof about the town of Cushing having a mass enlistment of 30 men for the Navy. That's cover it? Boy, just hand me that customary window seat and I'm on my way. I've got one favor to ask, Bob. While you're there, look up my old friend Doc Emmer. Doctor? What do you expect me to do, break a leg? Huh? Now, it's funny you should say that. How so, Hal? A broken leg was the basis of an exciting moment in Doc's life. You mean he broke his leg? No. Irene did. Now look, let's get this straight. Who was Irene? Do I get to meet her? I doubt that. But I will tell you the story, just as it once was told to me.
Okay, now the promise to Fisherman's Wharf introduction.
Fisherman's Wharf, a curious little room of the world, crammed deep in the heart of San Francisco. Here in the fish markets, the restaurants and stalls, the bright sounds of laughter and the quick cries of despair are lost in the excitement, or seem to have only a temporary meaning at best. Here in the shaded gloom of neon-lighted streets, the fog rolls in to cover the odd collection of people who gather at Fisherman's Wharf. Poets and pirates and sometimes archangels. And here the threads of stories begin, lead out to the edge of the world and back again. Tonight's story, like 1,000 others, begins at Fisherman's Wharf.
And the one story that's in the audition seems to serve as an introduction to Pat Novak for Hire, which was broadcast on KGO from 1946 to 1949. Jack Webb was not the lead in it for the first 2 years. Ben Norris was, but Webb took over. The program was sponsored again by Gallenkamp Shoes. And Pat Novak for Hire makes it clear the type of character that Webb was developing.
Gentlemen, the American Broadcasting Company brings to its entire network one of radio's most unusual programs, Pat Novak for Hire. Sure, I'm Pat Novak for Hire. That's what the sign out in front of my office says. Pat Novak for Hire. If you're trying to make a living down on the waterfront of San Francisco, you got to run things like a smorgasbord. You take a little of everything you can get your hands on. Even then, it's a bumpy ride, because down here, everybody tries to pad his part. Oh, I read boats and do anything else good men pay bad men to do. You don't get many gold stars that way, but you pay the bar bill, and it's about as safe as a closet full of tigers. The only way you can make friends down on the waterfront is to die. I found that out Tuesday night. I went to the wrestling matches and watched Gorgeous George throw some guy around like a poker chip in Tijuana. I was in the middle of the crowd on my way out of the place when this guy stepped up behind me and started talking. You got company, Novak. Huh? I said you got company. On both sides. Did your friend get his face at a fire sale, too? Can't all be pretty. Keep walking, Novak. Gun in my back supposed to help? It's up to you. Put the head out the side door. You got the right growl, but the wrong guy, mister. You just keep working your mouth, but nothing comes out. All right, this way. What are your plans? Shall we take the kid? Car right down here. Now look, big shot. In a drugstore, I get all the mystery I want for 2 bits. You want things explained? Yeah, besides Shovelhead here, I don't understand a thing. We just want Joe Deneen. I never heard of him either. We just want Joe Deneen. All right, you can have him. You're welcome. See his wife. See anybody you like. I don't even know the guy. He'll pull a talk.
soon as you want to make it the right time, you can go home. Here we are, into the back seat. You drive, Eddie. You boys run on. I'll grab a cab. Get in. I'm not going to take a vote. That's it. Just be a good mount. You got a lot of time to waste it this way, mister. You're too gabby, Novak. And you're too tough, Junior. The noise is beginning to give me a headache. Let's go, Eddie. Novak's going to sulk a while.
One of the popular programs in San Francisco that was not aired nationally is the Five Edwards, which were the 5 members of the Edwards family. The mother wrote the script, all 5 of them that were in the show. It's kind of like a Ozzie and Harriet with 5 people instead of 4. Sam Edwards, of course, was the only one that achieved ultimate fame of the family with playing the boyfriend of Corliss Archer. And he got that job, which he portrayed a teenage boy just after he'd finished his 30th birthday. The most predominant show, of course, in San Francisco was One Man's Family. It was a family drama that began in 1932. It ran until 1950. The first decade in San Francisco and the latter part in Los Angeles. But it was totally set in San Francisco. It was the first West Coast show that was aired on national radio to the East Coast. It was a soap opera, but nobody knew it because instead of being 15 minutes, it was 30 minutes. And instead of being in the afternoon, it was in the evening. So you could actually get into a fight by telling somebody you thought it was a soap opera. No, it can't be a soap opera. The program was so popular in 1940, it was ranked in the top 5 programs of all the programs in the entire United States. So quite remarkable. And because of its success, it spawned a impersonating program called Hawthorne House. And Hawthorne House, we have the meeting of the 2 stars of Candy Matson. Montgomery Moore, who changed his name to Monty Masters, met Natalie Park on this show. They were both actors, and he changed her name to his when he married her. It was a second marriage for both of them. They were on a number of programs emanating out of San Francisco. In fact, they were the first 2 to play the leads in I Want a Divorce. And that program didn't become popular until they moved it to Hollywood and gave it to the 2 Hollywood stars of Dick Powell and his wife, Joan Blondell. But at any rate, the Masters always wanted to be a writer, and he thought he was a comedy writer. And so he wrote an audition piece which the network accepted in July of 47 to be the summer replacement for Truth or Consequences. And Monty called it The Mad Masters. And in it, he and his wife, using their real names, played the 2 main characters. He was a shoe salesman that always fell asleep after dinner and had a dream, and that dream would become the half-hour show. It was not received well in the press. The New York Times called it, quote, embarrassingly devoid of laughs. John Crosby, another severe radio critic, termed it, just isn't funny, it clinks. Well, unfortunately, they're true. It's not funny, it's dreadful. And I'll only play you a few minutes of it, and you'll find out the same conclusion.
Gee, Christopher, he looks lousy. Look at that tube of blubber around the middle. Come on, let's talk to him. Yeah. Well, hello, champ. How's the boy?
Oh, Mac, old kid, I'll be a son of a gun. How are you, boy?
Tolerable, Monty, tolerable. Good to see you again. Hey, you look a bit comfortable around the equator.
Now, you know how it is, Mac. I haven't done a thing since the war ended. Nothing but eat and sleep.
Yeah.
Bound to put on a little weight, you know. Yeah, 2 or 3 more good workouts and I'll be okay, see?
You bet they see. They see too darn much, darling. You'll get all your stories through me and nobody else. Oh, how are you, Mac? I didn't see you.
Oh, I'm fine, Mrs. Masters. I never could see you.
What was
What
that
did
you
you
said?
say?
Oh, no, don't misunderstand.
Well, then just what did you mean?
Well, what I meant was I just can't see a woman being the manager of the world's typewriter speed writing champion.
Typewriter champion. Yikes. What kind of a dream is this?
Well, what's wrong with that, Mac?
Plenty. This racket's no place for a lady. It's too full of characters, illiterates, crooks, bums.
Mm-hmm.
Your dainty flower-like presence among all this chaff slightly nauseates me, that's all.
Well, how do you like this?
Natalie, I don't mean to sound mushy, but I can only see you dolled out in a yellow crinoline, standing in the doorway of a rustic little bungalow, waving a cheery evening greeting to Monty as he arrives home from the office on the 610.
And so on and on. He did not win the typewriting championship. But they continued on with their various assignments and other programs until Monty created Candy Matson. He originally intended it to be a male detective with a girlfriend. And fortunately, Natalie's mother convinced him to switch the genders. So Candy Matson became a female detective and the boyfriend became Mallard, played by Henry Leff. Henry Leff was present in September 2002, which would be 50 years after the Candy Matson show was over. The California Historical Radio Society had a special luncheon and a recreation of Candy Matson. And Henry, as the only surviving member of the cast, got to play the role of Mallard, of course. And following this performance, Henry gave us a few of his memories from the 40s on that show and what conditions were like for radio actors in San Francisco during World War II. So here's Henry Leff.
The arrangement with the character of Mallard, I told somebody when we did the original, I played Mallard as a kind of avuncular older man in the police force trying to help this young private eye. When the series came back approved, we sat down and talked, and Monty said, you know, maybe we ought to make them a romantic team. And I said, fine. So when I did the original Mallard, I was saying, well, Candy, one of the things you have to learn about police work is, and then I became a romantic lead. And those particular episodes, for those of you with your long-term personal contracts, I think for a half-hour show, we used to do 4 hours of rehearsal and showtime. And if I remember correctly, and I will not vouch for this, we got something like 13 or 15 bucks. The first show I ever did in San Francisco for KPO, which was then to become KNBR, I got the lead. As first show I ever did in town. And the going rate then was $19. And when I got the check, it was for $25. And I panicked. I thought, my God, they've made a mistake. So I called the accounting office at NBC, and I said, I think there's an error. I have a check for 25. And I mean, remember, 25. This was 1945. And the nice lady said, but Mr. Leff, you were the star. And as the star, you got the differential between 19 and 25.
And that's the way it was in the 40s. I'm going to play now 2 introductions to the Candy Matson series. The first one will just give you a true example of what each show started like. And the idea was to get Mallard and Candy together as soon as possible in the series, even before the first murder in this case. And this one is on the movie set. And we'll hear this now.
Hello, Yukon 28209. Yes, this is Candy Matson.
Eat that baby on the tree. Fix those dolly tracks. And look out, that cable is hot.
Mallard, what in the name of the San Francisco Police Department are you doing up here on Telegraph Hill?
Working, Candy, in the name of the San Francisco Police Department.
Here, with these people who are making the movie?
Yeah, how about that? Me, a lieutenant in homicide, and I'm assigned to riding herd on these Hollywood characters.
Oh, it's better than murder.
I'll take murder any day. What are you doing around here?
I did some shopping at Speedy's this morning, and while I was pinching the avocados, they told me that there was a Hollywood gang over by Coit Tower shooting some scenes for a movie with a San Francisco background.
They might just as well have stayed in the studio. They brought their own lawns, prop trees, fake bushes, the works. If it ever snowed up here on Telegraph Hill, they'd have brought some of that along, too.
You've never worked in Hollywood, Mallard. Only God can make a tree, but Hollywood presumes to improve on them. What are they doing now?
Just getting ready to shoot a scene, I think.
Now, the fact that I believe that Candy Matson is the best female detective ever on radio is pretty well documented, and this next show will prove it, in which on the 1-year anniversary of the Candy Matson show, it was voted the absolute most popular show in all of San Francisco. And here's the proof.
Hello, Yukon 28209. Yes, this is Candy Matson.
The National Broadcasting Company presents Candy Matson, Yukon 28209. Ladies and gentlemen, before we commence tonight's Candy Matson story, it's a very great pleasure to welcome as our distinguished guest this evening, the widely read radio columnist of the San Francisco Examiner, who conducts his own radio column under the title Day and Night with Radio and Television. Mr. Dwight Newton.
Thank you, Dudley Manlove. Recently, I conducted a popularity poll to determine our readers' favorite radio program originating in San Francisco. Heading the list, and a top-heavy favorite, was your Candy Matson program. In behalf of the Examiner readers who participated in the poll, I am happy to present this award, which reads as follows. 1950 San Francisco Examiner Favorite Program Award. This certifies that readers of the San Francisco Examiner have voted Candy Matson their favorite local radio program in a poll conducted by the undersigned writer of the column Day and Night with Radio and Television. Congratulations to all who participate on the Candy Matson program, to Monty Masters, who writes and directs it, and to you, Natalie Masters, the Candy Matson star.
Thank you, Dwight Newton. We're doubly proud of this award tonight because next week's program will mark Candy Matson's first birthday. From all of us here at NBC in San Francisco, to Dwight Newton, the San Francisco Examiner, and most of all, you, the listeners, who've made this award possible, our very sincere thanks.
And despite that popularity, the network refused to air it any place except the West Coast. And I never heard this show until I was 50 years old. But it was extremely popular because it was extremely well done. There are no flaws to this show at all. Never got a sponsor, never got beyond the West Coast. So that concludes our presentation here on San Francisco Radio. I don't know that I can answer any questions, but I will try if you want to unmute the group. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack. Any questions for Jack?
Jack, in the audition show that you played, Tudor Owen played a big part in a couple of Jack Webb's programs. Was he part of that audition show as well?
I'm not sure. And Michael Haight is working on it. Of course, he's the Jack Webb guy for Dragnet. And I've asked him about that show, and he can't find the background on that. There was only one audition piece, and we know almost nothing about it. And I know less than Michael does about it.
So Jack, I have an audition story for you. My father was actually supposed to play the lead in Dragnet.
Oh my God.
Yes. And his agent gave him the wrong information. He said, well, there's an audition and you can go when you're done, because he was doing another radio show. My dad did tons of small parts. There was a lot of radio going on in San Francisco, and he would often get tapped to do small parts. So his agent gave him the wrong information. And by the time he got to the audition, he found out it wasn't an audition. It was actually supposed to be the first taping. And the director was furious with my dad missing it and said, you'll never work in this town again, and so on and so forth. And apparently that's when Jack Webb got the lead. So that's my dad's favorite what if story.
Oh gosh.
Great story. Great.
There's another connection story here between Jack Webb and Sam Edwards. When the Five Edwards were playing in San Francisco, Jack Webb auditioned for a minor role on the show and was turned down. They didn't like the sound of his voice. So when Sam Edwards went to audition for Jack Webb on Dragnet, he thought he'd get the same short shift, but he didn't. And Sam got a few roles on Dragnet too. Okay, I'm anxious to hear the answers to the quiz here.
Yes, because with the end of the presentation, that brings us back to the radio quiz. And so from our remote feed, Ms. Stevens, are you ready?
I am ready. Let's see, the poll has been running. Oh, it looks like several people have filled in on the poll. Excellent, excellent. You have until I count down from 10, 9, 8,
Get her up a little higher.
7,
Here.
6, 5, 4, 3. We're almost at the end, Dave. 2. Time to turn back, Dave. 1. Just kidding. All right. I'm ending the poll. If you didn't get your answers in, too bad. I'm ready to read the answers.
Are you going to be able to show the results?
I'm doing it right now. Here it comes. All right. Here are one. Things are the answers, but only I and Frank, don't worry, know the truth. Number 1. The Lone Ranger's nephew, Dan, rode a horse that was the son of Silver. What was the horse's name? Frank, you got me on the first question. You cracked me right away. I couldn't handle it. As soon as I was like, Simon, Theodore, Alvin, or Victor. Well, Frank, you couldn't fool any of us because everybody said Victor, and that was the correct answer. So you had me. I was already cracking up. Boy, you got me already. Number 2. You're trying to determine Connie's landlady, Mrs. Davis's cat's name. Just about everybody got this one in the poll, and you are correct. It is Minerva, or as Mrs. Davis often said, Minerva, Minerva. Number 3. In the Lucille Ball comedy, My Favorite Husband, Mrs. Atterbury, what was her given name? You almost cracked me up on this one too, Frank. At first I didn't catch it until I was like, oh, Marcia, Sally, Wendy, what? Most people said Iris, and they are correct. C, Iris is the correct answer.
I'll miss the one I shouldn't miss though.
Number 4. Now this one was a bit trickier. Mustang Mag. This one, look at this. We were all over the place on this. A lot of people said Lone Ranger. This was a friend to the Lone Ranger. This was a friend to Hopalong Cassidy. A couple said Gene Autry. A couple said Roy Rogers. Well, guess what? Even I was wrong on this one. The correct answer is A, the Lone Ranger. Mustang Mag was a friend to the Lone Ranger. So there you go. Nice job to the 7 of you that put it right in the poll. All right. Number 5. On Big Town, this character provided Underworld, not to be confused with underwear, information to Steve Wilson, the editor of the Illustrated Press. I mean, I work with 3rd graders, okay, everybody? Like, come on. You know, I work with 3rd graders. So, you know, like we have underwear jokes every day. You know, okay. Who was this person? We were a little spread out on this one too. Some said Harry the Hack. I like that. Willie the Weep. I don't know. Does he cry when he gives information? I don't know. Freddie the Fink. I just like that name. I don't know, but I want to start calling people Finks, but I feel like that would probably be offensive. So I don't know, but I like it. Or Larry the Loser, another personal favorite, because I mean, to own that as your name, I'm Larry the Loser. You know what? More power to you, Larry. But the correct answer, shockingly, is B, Willie the Weep. What does he do? Cry when he I don't know, but I kind of love it. I kind of love all these names, and I want to write a story in which they all get together and make a really weird gang. I'm just saying. You're inspiring me, Frank. You're inspiring me. Number 6.
Don't know where to put your head.
Which of the following characters was not played by Jack Webb? Now, most people said Richard Rogue. A few people said the rest of them. But the majority wins. D, Richard Rogue was played by Dick Powell. Dick Powell. I love him.
Messed up.
Number 7. John Daner played J.B. Kendall in The Frontier Gentleman. What did J.B. stand for? Most people said it was never revealed. Some people picked John Britton. A few picked Jeremy Bryan, though apparently nobody liked James Barry, which was a good choice because that was the not correct answer. However, sorry, majority, you didn't win on this one. The correct answer goes to the 3 that picked C, Jeremy Bryan. There you go. Jeremy Bryan Kendall, Frontier Gentleman. That was a tricky one. I thought you were trying to trick me, Frank. You got me on that one. I went with the majority. Number 8. On the Green Hornet, Clicker Binney was a photographer. I like the name Clicker, so I was okay to go with that one. But you got me on this one too, Frank. Here I am reading the names. Oh, Marjorie. Then all of a sudden I'm like, Linnell, Rebecca, Joni. These names sound pretty familiar. Well, you might have fooled a few people, but not the majority. Ha! Majority. And her name was Marjorie. Marjorie. Whatever. All right. Marjorie A is the correct answer. I saw that. So Marjorie is the real name. I like Clicker though. I like Clicker.
Don't know that that's the right answer.
Number 9. Number 9. On the life of Riley, what was his friend, neighbor, and fellow former New Yorker's full name? This was pretty tricky. Could it have been James Monroe, James Brooklyn, James Buchanan, or James Madison? All seemed pretty likely. We were spread all over the map on this one. In the poll, the majority went with James Buchanan. C, but they were wrong. The correct answer goes to the lucky 3 that picked D, James Madison Gillis. There you go. James Madison, a Virginia own.
No, we didn't. No, I'm sorry to say.
And number 10, the final question. In February 1945, a group of Hollywood's greatest performed Dick Tracy in B flat. What was the show that it was performed on? Most people said Command Performance. A few said The Big Show. The majority wins on this one. It was Command Performance. Well done, everyone. Great quiz, Frank. That was very interesting, and you got me giggling in this one. I loved it. Excellent job. All right, that was fun. I'm going to stop sharing the poll. So say bye.
Okay. Thank you, Sally, for most entertaining quiz answers. And normally at this time, I would make a motion to adjourn the meeting. But before I do that, there is one point I forgot to bring up in new business is that June is normally the time to renew membership for club members. I know there has been some discussion that was initially brought up by Michael Haid as president about making the club an online only club versus what it is now, where once the pandemic is over, we could start meeting in person again. This would affect the dues. If the club remains as it is, then we would go with our current dues. If it goes online, there's less overhead, so dues will most likely would be reduced. Once more, that's something that probably will be brought up in discussion as we discuss the situation with Michael's resignation. So just want to make everyone aware of that. And unless there's any other items to be brought up, I would like to make. Yes, it's Joanna.
Can I ask? Do we get together in June usually for the summer before it breaks, or only do we do that in Christmas? I don't remember anymore.
Well, before we would have 2 luncheons,
okay.
One in June and one in December.
Okay.
There won't, at this point, that there is no plan to have it.
Okay.
What? Yeah. So at this point, yeah. So, but normally it would be June and December.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, Dennis, if I could just bring something up regarding, the reduction of dues. There are expenses that continue on even if we don't have the overhead of a meeting. First point. Second point. Once you reduce dues, it is very difficult to increase them again if the need arises.
Okay. Very good.
My thought is until we really are in a position where we would actually have permission to meet in person, that this is an issue that just needs to be tabled, probably until the fall. But that's just my thought on the subject, because there's still not enough clarity moving forward.
I know.
Okay, so you're saying, excuse me, I'm sorry, a question to Wendy, then just, not say anything about dues being due until fall?
Yeah, I would even leave it more vague than that. I would just say that for the moment, this is an issue that's tabled that it's on hold, that it, because we all basically are on hold until we have more answers to, how things will look moving forward. And that's going to require probably a fairly robust discussion at some meeting in the future.
Sure.
Which I would agree on. Obviously, last year we actually had waived the dues entirely because of the pandemic and how it's affecting the financial situation. But until we get a more clear picture of what the future holds in the near future, then yeah, that sounds like a viable option of tabling it until things become more in focus.
Didn't we also suggest
Sounds good.
talk about the possibility of still offering the virtual attendance for people who have problems with transportation, who aren't real close to Washington, D.C. or Virginia, I mean?
Well, I think the idea is probably, and correct me if I'm speaking out of turn, Dennis, but I think that the conventional wisdom is we are going to do everything possible to make, if we do return to in-person meetings, to make them hybrid so that we can in fact retain our members who are not in a position to come to Arlington, Virginia to meet in person on a regular basis.
Right, I really hope so, because that would help me. I mean, my transportation would be extremely expensive for me to get there, even though I'm not real close, but there's nobody who's offered, to give me a ride. So I'm in Baltimore. So it would be either very time consuming if I did it the cheap way, I have to spend hours to get there, or else very expensive, one or the other, so because I don't drive.
Right. And that's, I think, a consideration that, is being discussed, but we have to find out more about. I believe the church has improved their Wi-Fi connection. And I also will probably be in a position to get the password to the church's Wi-Fi somewhere in the future. But until we know all of these things, it's kind of hard to even discuss them right now. It's all very theoretical.
Wendy, I remember it might have been a year, maybe 2 years ago, there was some discussion of maybe moving the meetings to an audiovisual lab at, I think it was at George Mason, because they would have not only the ability to live stream stuff, but they've got a much better and more robust streaming capabilities. So that may have just died, a slow death because it wasn't interesting enough or something. But yeah, we may want to consider that also. I mean, like the church has been the place to be for how many years now? But if their Wi-Fi is not robust enough to support Zoom.
Yeah, but you're going off of information from years ago as far as the Wi-Fi. All of these churches have had to really bump up their Wi-Fi capability because they're live streaming and broadcasting services for the last year. So things are changing and we just don't have that information yet.
True.
If I could jump in, Michael made what I thought was an excellent suggestion for consideration. And that is we stream most of the meetings, but then meet in person twice a year like we used to, maybe on a Saturday for a luncheon. Otherwise, most of the meetings will be virtual. So that's something else to consider.
So lots and lots of options. And I really think until we have more information, and also, I mean, and this is, I may be speaking out of turn here, but we're not desperate for dues right now. We have a healthy balance of money in the bank. We have more than enough money to meet our expenses over the next 6 months. So worrying about dues right now, I would tend to just extend what we did last year which was to put a kind of a moratorium on that. But that's just my personal thought. That is not an official utterance.
I would not put a moratorium on it particularly because we're not gaining members from the outside, really. We're not advertising out, and we need to start doing that to maintain some sort of membership levels. So what I'm saying is I don't think we should table it for another year.
I'm not saying another year, but I do think we might as well table it while we don't have enough information really to answer the questions and to really have the discussion tonight per se. That may be something we want to do at, maybe our June meeting or July, something like that. I don't know, but I think with $7,000 in the bank, we will be able to meet our expenses for the immediate future. I'm not saying don't worry about dues, but I am saying that there is not an urgency to have people start showering checks on Joni Langdon right now. But again, that's just one opinion.
Oh, Dennis,
Yes.
I was looking at an email from Mank and with their new website, looking at the schedule, and I saw where on Saturday they have us down for a club meeting at Mank. So at some point in time, somebody needs to make a decision as to what, if anything, we are going to do, and who are going to be doing it.
Right. Well, that's news to me. So it's, but then again, up until Tuesday, I mean, just a club recorder here, so it's I guess Martin has already left.
Yes, I believe he signed off.
Okay.
We could also to attract members. There's the group on Facebook is called OTR Researchers Group, and if we would just drop a comment or two there, that a lot of the researchers that I read their commentary on the Facebook group site, and so they're all very much in tune with communicating with each other by on that format, and if they may know about our club, but if we just drop a comment or two onto that, that's just one place where we could quote advertise our club.
Mm-hmm.
One of the moderators of that Facebook group is Martin himself, so that he might head up that.
And what is the name of the group again?
I think it's Old Time Radio Researchers Group. OTR.
Oh yes, okay. Yes, I'm familiar with them.
They're authors and they communicate with each other, and so well, if we are, even though we haven't decided on a dues schedule, at least more people should get to know about the club.
Right, and of course Rebecca just posted something on chat about the possibility of advertising again on the big podcast. I guess if we go to virtual, either completely or hybrid, do we want to advertise at that point, or do we want to wait to see if we do have physical meetings again for people to attend?
We start with the virtual because that'll mean that you can get people from anywhere in the country to come and join, and we can really increase our membership And then there'll be a better feel on whether we would want to have in-person meetings every month or maybe just twice a year or something like that. Because if there's a whole lot of other members that live further away, they would have a say, but they might have a interest in continuing to participate. Isn't it more important to have more members regardless of how we do it? So we don't die out? I mean, just because we all age out?
Yeah, I just look at 120. Yeah, we're doing pretty good as it is. Was it 125 members?
Yes.
You're good.
Well, that's great.
So. Well, but yeah, I'll see a lot to discuss here. Anything else? No.
Before we close, I'd like to direct your attention to the Bush Family Square, where they have been demonstrating their extreme skill in handling a wild and dangerous animal all during the show today. And I don't want you to miss their handling. Is so expertise. Look like Marcia almost already got eaten up by him already, maybe gone. I don't know.
I think the beast won. It ate Marcia.
Are we talking about Mark or something else?
The addition to the Bush family.
This is Layla. This is our new member of the family. It's a cocker mix.
Good looking dog. He is a good looking dog.
Yes, I hear Layla's favorite radio show is Lassie. So.
What?
Very good. Hey, Marcia, I like your hair long. It looks very nice.
Very good. That's so. And on that note, before we slip into possibly a social hour, do we have anything else before a motion is made to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Very good. Then
Those in favor, turn off.
then
All in favor.
yeah, all in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Then I declare this May 2021 meeting of the Metro Washington Old Time Radio Club adjourned. Everyone have a good evening and a great weekend.